Alright, so I'm going to do a VFX breakdown of this little clip here that I made. This was just something I did for fun, so don't judge on some of these things being very unorganized, because as I said, it was just something I was doing for fun. And I'm also going to do it a little different because there's a few things I want to talk about. I'm not going to replicate it here as we do it. I'll just kind of break it down in the shots and show you. And I'm also going to show you how to do tracking for a scene, because this shot has movement in it, and I want the fire and everything in the background to look like it fits into this scene with her movement and the camera movement as well. Anyway, so this is what like I said, this is what we have, and this is what it actually looked like before. And do not judge how bad the green screen is wrinkly and how bad it's lit. I already know, but I ended up making it work, so don't judge too hard. But anyway, as you see, we have quite a few shots, some wides, some close-ups, some tracking. Anyway, so let's go ahead and move on over here to this wide shots, and I will strip everything down real fast. Okay, so the first thing I did with her is I centered her. She wasn't perfectly centered in the shot, so I went ahead and moved her over. Now, when keying out a person, I like to go ahead and just mask around them, and luckily she was not moving that much, so the mask didn't have to be animated. But I just feel like it's easier, it makes the software not have to work as hard, so just go ahead and add that mask. The next step, I use key light, and I like to just grab one of the darker parts of the green. For some reason that just helps with keying out everything, so I go ahead and do that. And I tweak all the settings to make it perfect. So we can go to Combine Matte, and as you can see, it's pretty perfect. And I just go ahead and use Final Results, and then I go ahead and add a spill killer. This one doesn't really have a whole lot of spill on it, but I go ahead and add it anyway. So that's all I'm going to show you with her for now. So what we wanted to do is go ahead and start building a scene. I wanted to do a building on fire, so for just the sake of creating something for fun, I went to Google to find some sort of background that I could use for my fire elements. Now, if I was to do this for a project, I would probably either create something either from like Photoshop or make something maybe in Illustrator, because this is just mostly color because we're going to be blurring out the background anyway. So yeah, so I found this photo on Google and decided I was just going to go ahead and use that. It had all the kind of the light color that I wanted, and it even has some of these boards that I can actually create some depth with the fire. Anyway, so starting off, I wanted to go ahead and start adding some fire elements. So first thing is we have these cool boards here. So in a house fire, you would think those boards would be on fire. So I went ahead and add some fire to the boards. I have one here, and I have one over here. And this one over here on the right is a good example of showing you how to sell some of the layers that you put into your image, how to sell them into the shot. So this board right here is behind this object. So this fire naturally would also be behind that object. So I used a mask just kind of to mask out this part here so it looks like it fits into the scene. Yeah, so then the next thing I wanted to go ahead and add is in a fire, things start to fall. So you're going to have some debris. So I went ahead and added a few different debris elements over here in the corner. Seemed like a perfect little spot. So we have one here. It's kind of a powder debris. You can see it here. I went ahead and just added that into the shots. And I'll go ahead and turn off this null object for now. Just that way you can kind of... I could stop doing that. Yeah, I'll show you that later because we wanted that push kind of camera movement. Anyway, so the next falling debris I added was some boards. Let me turn off the color. Yeah, so I just added these little boards here falling down. Just like I said, it kind of feels like it, you know, if you're in a burning building, things are just going to start falling. And I think I went ahead and masked out down here as if it's kind of like falling behind this stuff here. Yeah, I didn't want it to completely go down all the way. Anyway, because I think I added fire there or something, I don't know, but yeah, so there's a method to my madness, I promise. All right, so the next thing I started doing was adding bigger fire elements. So this one I added in the background, and I added it behind this little thing. See, again, this is, as I said, layering and making things look like they fit into the scene. I wanted this fire to feel like it was further back and kind of fit behind some of these elements. The next fire I did, this is another example of just making things fit in your scene. I wanted to go ahead and put another big fire, but I wanted it to be behind these boards and also behind whatever this thing is right here. So just kind of, as I said, trying to make it fit into the scene. I added just another mask. I masked out this board and this object here to make it fit into the scene. Yeah, so there you go. Then I did a little bit of feathering just to kind of make it feel like it fits more. Then just adding some smoke. And I went ahead and added some sparks as well, because maybe there's some electronics, in the ceiling that are, some lighting that's just going out because of the fire. There's one there, and the one I added here is in the very beginning. You're going to see up here in this corner, right there. All right, so that's kind of all of our elements. So one of the other things that I wanted to do was I wanted it to kind of have as if the camera is at a lower aperture, so it would be more blown out. Or not blown out, blurry. I'm sorry. So I went ahead and started adding lens blur to all of the elements in the backgrounds, and also color grading the debris so it's more orange and fits into the scene, because that's very important, making sure everything fits the scene. And by doing this, I actually don't even have to color grade the footage all that much, because I went ahead and made it all work. I kind of blended it already individually, so when I was actually coloring the whole scene, I ended up just having to add contrast and some curves to it. Didn't really have to do much color. So anyway, so now we have, that fire is not blurry. There, and that one, okay, cool. Oops. Now that we have everything in the background, it's blurry, it's exactly how I wanted it, all fits in there. Maybe I can go ahead and just render this real quick and play it. When your scene is rendering and your computer hates life and takes forever, it's the prime time to check Instagram or Facebook or even emails. All right, now that my computer hates itself, we got a render. Anyway, so let's just go ahead and check that out. So that's just what that looks like right now, with all of the blur, the color, and making everything kind of match in the scene. I think I actually didn't add all this. Nope, no, I did add stuff to the smoke. Anyway, so yeah, so that's all that. So now the next thing we want to do is add some a plugin called Heat Distortion. I believe it's by Video Copilot. It's an amazing program. It just creates that ripple effect. So you can see as I turn it on, you can just kind of see immediately that there is something done to it. If you've ever looked through a bonfire at somebody, you can see that they almost look like they're underwater, sort of. I don't know, just kind of this ripply effect. Well, that's called heat distortion. If you're going to do anything with fire, you're going to want to make sure that you add that on there, because it's going to look, something's going to look off if you don't have that. I'm sure there's techniques and tricks to do it in After Effects, but as I said, if there's a plugin for it, why not just use the plugin? Anyway, so now we want to start adding our actress into the shots. So now that we have her, she's already keyed out and everything, the first thing that I want to do is make her look like she actually matched the scene. So I want to color her to look like she fits in the scene. So all I did is let's go ahead and look into looks. All I did is do I think I just saturated her more and then made her orange. I'm pretty sure that's all I really did. Yeah, so here she is without. A little bit of saturation, and then a little bit of orange, and then control the orange a little bit more, and just kind of fit the tone of the background. So we have that. The next thing you want to do is when you're green screening something, especially since this green screen shot was not filmed for this. So I kind of had to design the scene to match her and not necessarily the other way around. I didn't film for the background is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so she is really dark on this side right here, which if you have a lot of fire behind you, that's not going to be the case. So I had to go ahead and add what's called a light wrap. And when you're doing green screen, it's always good to go ahead and use light wrap, because it makes it look like your subject is actually in front of what is behind her. Light wrap just takes a background, which we just used that fire thing that I showed you earlier as the background for the light wrap. So you're about to see that she's going to be a lot lighter up here, and it's going to feel like she actually fits into the scene. So let's go ahead and turn that on. Boom, there you go. So now she looks like she actually belongs in this scene a little bit more. And then I just like to add a little bit of edge blur for green screen, just ever so much, especially since we're doing kind of a blown out or blurry background. It just kind of works. Anyway, so Now we just want to further sell that she's actually in the scene, so we want to add some elements in front of her. So I just kind of went with some smoke, and I did originally put some fire in front of her, but it just kind of seemed too much. So less is more. And then I created some embers with just some particles I had. And then I just added a glow and brightened them and made them fit more. And there we go. Just adding a glow to some particles and make them look like embers. Magic. The next thing that I did is I went ahead and let's go ahead and add the camera. So all I did is I attached everything to this null object, and you get this push effect, which I can show you here because it's already rendered. Magic, right? There you go. So we're just getting that pushing forward camera look. So you don't get the stagnant, just kind of wide shot that this is right here. Like that doesn't look as, that's boring. Anyway, so yeah, so we added the push in there. So now all we have left is to do the finishing touches, which is what we have here in our adjustment layer. Also, I have a heat distortion on an adjustment layer here, and it's only affecting the stuff below it. And we do need some heat distortion on our actress because she is in the scene and it is hot in there, so we do need some heat distortion. So I have another adjustment layer right here that has some heat distortion in it for the main shot, so it then adds it over everything. So now she looks like she's actually in a really warm room. And then I added this twitch, and what this twitch is doing is when you're in fire, you're going to have this like flickering light effect. So what I did with twitch is I just enabled the lighting effects and I just turned on brighter, so you're going to get some like random flickering light, which is what fire does. And then the final touches is just go ahead and adding the looks, which as I said earlier, I had colored everything to kind of match as it needs. So all I had to do was add some curves and some contrast, and this is what we get. So yeah, so all I really did in looks is I did enhance the highlights, because in a fiery situation, the highlights are going to be almost kind of blown out. And then I just added quite a bit of contrast, and this is kind of what we got. So anyway, so that's how I did the wide shot. So I want to go ahead and show you how I did one of the tracking scenes, which is this one right here. So tracking is fun. So if you're going to do a green screen and you want camera movements, and you want natural camera movement, well, there's a way of doing that. And that's by using a tracking shot like this, where I have a tracker, like a little tracking mark in the background. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how I would go about tracking this, and then I'll show you how I broke down the rest of the stuff for the shots. Anyway, so go ahead and create a null object, because this is what's going to retain all the information from your tracking. And you're going to click on the footage that you want to track, which is right here, and you go to track motion. And it's going to take you to this scene right here. It's going to pop up a whole nother window, and it's going to give you these two squares. Now, all you need to do to track this is to make this square right here fit around this little plus sign here. And if you were going to do more, so if there was like rotating and scaling and all that stuff, you can go into more detail and add more tracking information. And I can do a video on how to do all of that another time. But just for this shot, I'm going to show you how I would do this one. So I don't need scale or rotation. We just need this one. So this outer triangle or square here is to predict where this is going to be in the future. So as you see, we move forward. It doesn't really move that much. So this square can be kind of small. Now, if you had a tracking shot where this right here is going to be all over here, you want to make sure that this is big enough to capture that movement. Because if you don't set this up right, you're not going to get a good track. It's going to just freak out on you. Anyway, so I think this is probably, honestly, that's probably about good right there. And then you go down here to edit targets. This is where you're going to set up that null object. Click that. And it's very simple. You just press forward, analyze forward, and hope that it does a clean track. Let's go. All right, so that is done. Sometimes these can take a really long time. Sometimes they're instant. It's hard to predict. I guess maybe just how the computer's feeling that day, but if it takes a long time, gives you time to go get a coffee, donut, whatever. Anyway, so now that we have this track, it looks pretty clean. There's maybe some little jitter, I'm not sure until I actually put it on there. But anyway, so after you have your tracking done, then you go down here and you click apply. And when you click apply, it's going to lock in all of that tracking information, not only on the null object, but also on a tracker here on the actual shot, which has all this information. But anyway, the tracking point is what you want, because that tracking point is going to allow you now to attach anything into this background. So let's see if I can just grab something random here. I got some, here we go. We'll just take this right here, and we're gonna go ahead and mask this out real quick. Hold on, we're just gonna do this real fast so I can kind of show you what this does. Okay, so we got her there, and let's go ahead and grab all of this information. Actually, we can just grab the key light. Add that on there. Boom. Okay, so anyway, so let's go ahead. Now that we have the tracking point here and we have her masked out, what I can do now is show you, because as you see right now, without that tracking point, this just looks like it's green screens. So what you want to do is you want to take this background and you want to adjust it accordingly to, oops, I don't want to mask it out. You want to adjust it to how you would want it into the scene. So maybe we just want this pole right here on the side of her. There you go, just like such. And then what you want to do is you want to take this and you want to link it to this null object. And now what's going to do is, if we did this correctly, this background is going to follow the movement of the camera, and it's going to look like it's actually meant to be in this scene. So here, let's see. I mean, that's pretty close. That looks pretty good. But anyway, that's what you would do as far as the masking. Masking as the tracking goes to make your background fit in. And the amazing thing is that you only have to do this once, and then you can start adding all your other elements into the scene, and you just attach it to this null object, and it should, as I said, look like it fits into the scene. Now there's a lot more complicated things you can do. There's 3D tracking and a lot of other fun things that maybe one day I will show. And I'm sure there's tons of videos on YouTube, but you know, I'll do one too. Why not? This is what we're about to do right here, this little scene. So I'll just go ahead and break that down. All right, so we just masked out that little part there that had the tracking marker on there because you can't really key that out. So just mask that out, and then we go ahead and add our key lights, which this one's actually lit pretty well. So I just grabbed kind of the darker point there. Same thing, which we get this. Add the spill killer as I always do, and then some edge blur. And looks, this one I didn't have to add light wrap. I think I did add light wrap, and it actually kind of took away from it. It didn't look natural, so I removed it. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. This shot worked out that we did not need the light wrap. So anyway, so we now have her as we want her. And what I did is I just brought over the elements from my wide shots, and I just went ahead and scaled it up, just as I said when we were tracking. See, we just wanted that pole right there, and I just used that same element from the other shot. Now, if I was to do this legitimately, as I said, I would create elements individually for each shot, but as I said, this was just a fun project. So now you want to do the same thing. You want to just start layering on things to fit the scene. So one of the first things I did is I added a fire. Same thing with the masking. I wanted it to be behind this pole, so I just masked out that pole. You can show it here, or why is that not? Oh, I have everything. Hold on. There we go. So I have, as you can see here, just have this pole masked out. So it creates, and everything, as I said, is attached to that null object, so it tracks into the shot. Looks like it's naturally supposed to be there. Anyway, and by scaling up this picture, when the camera moves, you have plenty of information to use. Right, so just like I said, continue layering stuff in. I wanted to add more fire. This one is on that pole. And I did another big fire back here. Let's see, let's remove her and see where this one's at. It's been a minute since I did the shot. Yeah, so see, we just did another big fire in the background. And this one as well is masked. You just mask this pole right here, so it looks like it's fitting into the scene naturally. And then I just added some smoke. Same thing, just some welding sparks coming down because it's the same room, so you want the elements to kind of match. And then I add the heat distortion again. We also want to go back through and add the lens blur to all of our elements. just like I said, to make it look all cool and artsy and fun. Well, thing's already done. Okay, there we go. So now we bring her back into the scene. As you can see, the color of her is matching pretty well with the color in the shots. And then we're adding our same particle effect to create those embers. So it looks cool. And then I did the same thing. So as I said, with coloring everything individually to make it all fit, I didn't have to add an actual color grade on top of it. I just did the same curves with the contrast and the highlights and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and turn that on. So there we have that. And as I said, just increase the highlights and just some contrast and curves, and you get this really beautiful, I mean, like, it's almost night and day difference. It just really makes all the colors pop and match really well. And then we do the same thing with the heat distortion, so that way it looks like the scene fits. You can see it just kind of blurs. And then the twitch to create that light effect with the fire. Honestly, that's really all I did with all the different shots. The tracking shots were, if anything, the hardest ones here because they have movement elements to it. But after we tracked those points, it was pretty easy. Just adding those elements into it. Here's one of the other tracking shots. Yeah, but if you want me to go in more detail in this video, just say in the comments and maybe I'll get it all together and replicate it here on video. It just, as I said, it's kind of, there's so many different shots. There's wide shots, close-ups, tracking shots, mid shots, all of them. So if there's like ones that you really individually want more info on and be like, okay, well, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Just let me know and I'll go ahead and do another video on this. But anyway, that's just, like I said, this is a little video for this fun project that I did just for friends. But anyway, thanks for watching.